The Means to an End by its_Kingston on AO3. Episode 13. Chapter 7. A laugh, one that started soft and gained volume as Uraraka fought to keep tears from her eyes, bubbled from her chest. Toga looked over at her, a smile painted across her face, eyes shining as though she had just been given the best of news, a most delicious meal, the greatest gift. Uraraka stated, taking a breath in and relishing in the fact that the crisp night air came not from her own tower window, but from the mountain she climbed with Toga. I find myself more grateful for you with every passing day. And that was something to laugh so hard about? Toga asked. She lifted a hand to wipe a falling tear from Uraraka's cheek. You do not know of when you have such full good feeling you cannot help but laugh? Uraraka asked. It is like it spills out. I gave you such a feeling? Toga asked, her eyebrows raised, tone amused. The timber was all but forgotten. Fire probably out, yet neither could bring themselves to look away. Of course, Uraraka answered. Asked her if she wanted to continue traveling together, like a sharp certainly and a fire in her eyes. You make me glad to have endured the tower, to have endured the loneliness. Toga stepped closer, her hands coming up to cup Uraraka's face. Her gloves were off, rings cold from the whip of the wind. Yet Uraraka only pressed closer to her hands. Her own hands lay aimlessly at her sides for a moment, though she quickly regained her wits and lifted them, letting them rest on Toga's waist. Ochako? She asked, her voice almost lost to the wind. If I were to kiss you at this moment, I would kiss you back, Uraraka said quickly. Toga's smile grew across her face, parallel to the redness, though that seemed to be all the confirmation she needed to lean in. The first thing Uraraka noticed was that Toga was warm against her, or perhaps it was simply that Uraraka had grown warm from her closeness. The next was the roughness of Toga's lips against her own, the clumsy push and pull they found themselves lost in. Uraraka felt Toga's hands slide from her cheek to her shoulder, and in turn ran her own hands further up Toga's back. She felt Toga smile against her, a muffled laugh escaping from between them as they pulled apart. Uraraka was positively radiant as she caught her breath, hands remaining on Toga's back, the blonde's hand resting comfortably on Uraraka's shoulder still. There were still a few quiet moments between them as they simply grinned at one another before their moment was forsaken. Uraraka? Himiko lost out there? Spinner's tired voice came out. He sounded more irritated and cold than caring at the present. Lost in your eyes, perhaps, Himiko said, quietly, winking at Uraraka before leaning around her to holster towards Spinner. You've taken most of the tinder, fool. We needed to go further from the clearing. Funny. I can see your silhouette against the night sky well enough. I wasn't aware that's how one was supposed to procure fuel. I've been doing it wrong all along, apparently. Spinner teased, a laugh evident in his tone, though he tried to force it down. Just gather the tinder. Our fire's gone out, and I find myself freezing. We will. Uraraka called back to him. Dobby's voice joined the others in the chilling night air. Quiet, you sorry bunch. If I wanted to be awakened, I'd be the one collecting tinder. The climb down the mountain was expectedly easier than the one up. Despite the sharp rocks waiting for a single misstep to skewer any bypasser, the large divots dug into the ground, ready to swallow a leg whole. It was quite peaceful. Or perhaps Uraraka was still buzzing from the previous night's events. Collecting tinder hasn't been nearly as dreadful afterwards, as any time the pair made eye contact, they got splitting smiles and devolved into fits of choked laughter. Uraraka spared a glance to the woman walking beside her and felt her smile reach up to her eyes. She reached her hand out, clasping Toga's in hers, and began swinging them as they walked. Uraraka heard Toga laugh lightly as their hands drifted back and forth, and joined in herself. After about an hour's time of walking behind the other members, Uraraka was able to spot a distant settlement. Little houses from the logs that hatch stood proudly in the clearing, too perfect to be nature's design. Human interference was evident in the tree stumps and the berryless bushes they passed coming to the head of the village itself, carved into the mountain. "It looks incredible," Uraraka said, marveling at the way the small village had prospered. Little flyers bloomed across the town, smokestacks churning out fluffy gray puffs, children running amok, or dodging parents and ducking between clothes hangers. Men, with hatchets slung over their shoulders, walked 10 feet ahead of them, hauling a log over their shoulder. Uraraka wondered if new houses were in construction, a place for children to grow into. Spinner hummed distantly. "I suppose so. The village is where I was born and raised," he revealed. From his place on the mountain, he looked down upon it. "I was a bit of an outcast from the start, only strengthened when I tailed the Legion out of there the first time they hitched a ride on our wagons." "We hitched a ride on your wagon, and you've hitched a ride with us since that day," Dobby said. "The scales balanced themselves out, one way or another." Uraraka was silent for a moment as she watched the people run around, careless. Were there parents who missed their sons, or was Spinner a name long since murmured in those streets? Uraraka found herself not wanting to know the answer. Was it more cruel to hope they didn't miss him? Or they did? "How many people are in the Legion?" Uraraka asked as they continued walking. "I'm unsure," Shigaraki decided after a moment. "There is us, and the 3 who are waiting for our return, and there are hidden ones. The Legion is open for all, so long as they fight against the crown and live as they please. I have hardly an idea how many are aligned with us, though I like to imagine we have several hundred members scattered across the lands. You need not name or ties to be a victor. It is nothing more than the banner we fly. A victor is one who flies free. Nothing more, nothing less." Uraraka nodded once, an understanding crossing between them. "That is an admirable banter, if nothing else." "How much longer must we wait?" asked Jin. He was crouching behind the shrubbery, left to grow wild berries for the village out of sight. "What is the point of hiding yourself away if you intend to draw attention with your whining?" Dobby asked quietly. "Hush," Shigaraki said, peering around the mess of leaves. Uraraka had done her best to stay silent and out of the way, unfit to judge the circumstance like the people she traveled with. Even Jin, as prone as he was to complaining, was nearly impossible to hear, even as he walked through patches of crisp leaves strewn upon the ground. A rattle shook through the ground, pebbles grinding and the occasional rock flying out as the wheels of a wagon rolled them over. The group shifted, heads popping up over the edge of the thorny bush to absorb the horse-drawn carriage as it passed down the trail in front of them. Another wagon was primed to leave, its horses being hitched and its wheels being secured before it set off towards Achia. "There's our wagon back towards home," Spinner said. He stood up alongside Shigaraki, and the pair began walking along the cover of the greenery, falling into step with the first wagon. They looked at each other before darting out and jumping onto the back with a slight bump. Spinner landed fully in the open back of the wagon, while Shigaraki himself on a step. Spinner grabbed his hand and held him up, and the pair settled on the back step of the wagon. Spinner grinned and gestured for the others to follow along. "Won't the next wagon outsee them?" Uraraka said quietly. It stood primed by the gate, the horses hooked to the cart as they started forward. Jin shook his head. "They leave spaces between one another to ensure there is no chain reaction between the horses. If the leading cart gets spooked, the others very well could too. Works out quite nicely this way." I'll make sure to help you aboard, though I doubt you'll need it, Toga said reassuringly. She looked towards Uraraka, who returned Toga's easy smile with an unconfident one of her own. Dabi. Jin nodded his head towards the wagon that began rolling from the border of the village. The man shifted, causing Diego to tighten his claws around the leather of his glove, and began moving to intent the wagon. Jin followed him silently, making his way through the shrubbery with surprising agility for someone who'd complained about lacking beer that morning. Uraraka took a breath and watched as the third wagon began prepping for its departure. She swore one of the leading horses stared directly at her for a moment, but it looked forward again, with its reins were tugged as the man steering the cart made sure that they were fastened properly. Nervous? Toga asked. Don't be. She pointed towards the carts ahead, where Jin, Dabi, and Spinner and Shigaraki waited. They all sat uncomfortably, the indifference of people who'd done this 1,000 times evident in their posters. A tad, Uraraka admitted, though I am confident I will have little issue here. We will be on our way in hardly a moment. Toga smiled at that, wide and dazzling. I agree. Follow my lead, and we shall be right with them, she said, with a nod to the Legion members, riding down the trail ahead. Within a minute time, the next wagon was turned free from the gates, its horse clumping down the solid dirt with vigor. Toga stood, and Uraraka followed wordlessly. The pair crept down the same stretch of tall green cover the other members had traveled here until they were lined up with the cart. Toga made a motion to Uraraka and darted inwards, cutting through the cart and jumping onto the back step. Uraraka was quick to do as she had, and drifted near the wagon before spinning up and grabbing the back handle. She fumbled with her footing for a moment, but once her feet were properly planted, she pulled herself fully onto the wagon with ease. Uraraka looked up from the back step. She took on and met Toga's gaze. The rogue looked on prideful, and made it Uraraka's heart tender in her chest like hooves of the horse dragging the wagon along. She smiled widely and opened her arms, to which Toga did in return embraced her. Skillful for your first attempt, Toga said quietly, and Uraraka couldn't help but smile into her shoulder. Lunch, Uraraka said as she pulled her satchel from her side. They drifted across the tail long enough to watch the sun move towards the center of the sky, over the incredibly distant treetops that Uraraka could only see when she learned to peer around the mountains and over the mountain itself. Lunch was only nature as the sun beat down on the land around them, falling on the bright, lush grass and covetable pathway that began growing more frequent as they edged closer to the kingdom of Achi. Toga nodded, tearing her gaze from the clouds that dotted the sky, thin and wispy, traveling as they were. That sounds nice. Thank you. Uraraka pulled the bread she brought in from the satchel alongside, the salted meat she had been given to store away by Spinner. A fitting lunch she prepared. Here you are, she said, handing out a cut of meat and a slice of bread for Toga. She took it quickly, tearing into it, as she looked back over the world they slowly passed over. Uraraka would have thought Toga was the one who'd never seen it before, with the way she admired every color of every plant, and how she so intently let her eyes gaze over the pebbles beneath them before turning her gaze back to the sky. Toga looked towards Uraraka when she was satisfied with her survey of the world. This may sound a touch silly, I'm aware, but everything seems brighter with you by my side. Yes? It looks as though the flowers are in bloom even when they're not, and the clouds look as though they were sharpened by higher powers to reflect how scattered yet whole I feel by your side. I am aware of what you mean, Uraraka said, smiling softly at the woman beside her. She slid closer, hooking her arms around Toga as he continued eating. I am glad to be here, with you. Toga leaned her head onto Uraraka's shoulder. Yes, and I to you. The dismount from the wagons went just as smoothly as the mounting of them. When it came time for Uraraka and Toga to jump from the back of them, they found the other 4 members of the Legion waiting for them, tucked behind the trees, out of sight from the wagons that continued down the path. They landed solidly on the ground, one after the other, and a string of grass shooting up beneath the rocks that framed the tile, pushing to the side. "Finally," Dobby said, as he pushed off the ground, standing near the edge of the woodland. "We have been waiting for you. Jin would not let us leave without the pair of you, despite Himiko knowing the way back." "It is safer to travel together," Spinner said. "There's hardly a time when being by your lonesome is better for survival." "Neither here nor there," Jin decided. "We should be on our way. They're waiting for us." "Yes, let us begin home," Shigaraki said, and with that, he was off, as if he could not wait another moment before starting on his way back over their base. He turned and walked off, Spinner following behind him with an easy smile, the type of smile that came unconsciously, the kind that was impossible to keep off one's face. Dobby whistled, and Kyogo appeared from a nearby tree branch. His claws glided into the afternoon sunlight as he descended and latched onto Dobby's glove. The man was off behind the others after that, Jin right behind him. Uraraka and Toga were last, falling into the same formation they had trekked over the mountain, and the same order they had gotten onto as the carts. It gave some sense of normalcy. Some sense of repetition is unknown. No matter where they passed, though, Shigaraki led it. Spinner by his side, with Dobby and Jin right behind them. Kyogo either on Dobby's arm or in the air. Uraraka walked beside Toga. That way she had since they first left the tower, always following behind the others, at their own pace, even if it meant losing track of them around a bent or passing a tree line. When they did lose sight of the traveling companions, Toga would keep them on course, down the trail she'd been taught, down the trails where she was teaching Uraraka. This actually was going to have to be shorter than expected, but for some reason in my mind, when they said that they catch, what's it called? Not flights, but catch the wagons and, like, they, hitch a ride at the wagons. I thought, like, the people who, obviously are driving the wagons let them, not that they, like, they actually, like, not hijacked, but, like, sneak a ride. I thought, like, it was a thing that they were let, like, they were invited, they were allowed. And then when Jin said that he used to go there, right, and that, that, I thought, oh, okay, well, that makes sense now, right? There's, a member, right, and then he said that he was a bit of an outcast. I'm like, okay, well, maybe they're helping him because it's like, oh, we don't want him, so, like, you have them, so, like, we'll help you because you've taken away this one thing from us that we don't really want. Like, thank you for taking away our trash kind of situation. I don't like the smell of that. Okay, anyways, sorry, my bad. But, no, I was further from the truth. I genuinely thought it was something like that, not what we ended up getting. No words, actually, for that, actually. Yeah, no words. Absolutely none. I did not expect that. I think so far this is really cute. The next episode, I believe, is going to be the last. We are nearing the end of, what's it called? Kingston's reign. Kingston, you're gonna have to put down your title. But do not worry. This will forever be an orphaned. Again, I think it'd be hilarious to make this an orphaned account, section now. As in, like, saying, like, oh, we don't accept anyone but Kingston on the 2 p.m. slot. Obviously, maybe one day I will accept, Kingston on the 2 p.m. slot after we ran out of orphan accounts. Which most definitely is not going to happen anytime soon, I'll tell you that. Mainly because there is so many. So many. But who knows, maybe I will run out. Hopefully not. Anyways, so as Kingston, as you post, I'm gonna do one of two things. I'm either going to post alongside with you, or I'm gonna record the video as you post. Meaning, I'm gonna record the video as you, like, I'm probably gonna post as you post. right? So whenever you post a chapter, in between the series is probably when I would do it. Because I don't want to just interrupt in the middle of a series. That would be weird, right? But probably once a series is done, be like, all right, how many Kingston chapters have they released? How many chapters has Kingston released of their new series kind of situation, right? I'll let one flow a little bit. Or I might just post it all together. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm still debating on that. But either way, this slot is always open and available for you, Kingston. I think the only time that, yeah, it's open and available for you, Kingston, for forever and ever and ever and ever. It is your slot. It is forever your slot. And as you are not taking up hold of your slot, it will be orphaned. It's an orphan slot. You orphaned this slot, unfortunately. It is without its author. Therefore, I will only do orphaned accounts on here. Sorry, I find that joke so hilarious. Okay, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Oh my god. Sleep? No, I already said that. I'm tired. As always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Why am I so tired now? Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.